Imagine dramatic, fast-paced music and rapid cuts as this entire saga unfolds. Okay, guys, drop everything, because this is not your standard airport drama. This is a high-stakes, maximum mileage hustle that changed everything. You think airline pilots just sip coffee and wave at planes? Wrong. 3 days ago, my perfectly ordered life, I'm Captain Marcus Cause, by the way, and I run a tight ship, went completely sideways. 180 degrees, full emergency landing mode. I met a woman, Maria, a brilliant doctor who was trapped, literally caged and totally stateless, in the sterile, bureaucratic black hole known as the International Free Zone, right in the heart of my airport. She was a glitch in the system, a human error the system wanted to delete. After being rejected by 3 neighboring countries and staring down a deportation order to a literal war zone, she told me she had tried escaping just days before, and the ground crew chief, Victoria, caught her and sent her back, threatening total deportation. Maria was ready to give up, convinced she was the anchor that would sink anyone who tried to help her. But giving up is not in the captain's playbook. I told her that lawyers were a total waste of my massive air miles. Zero progress in that we were skipping the line entirely, going full Captain Chaos by leveraging my rank, my connections, and my family history, because this wasn't just altruism. It was revenge for my father, a brilliant aerospace engineer who died waiting in a similar detention 20 years ago after being denied entry. This was the moment I revealed the plan. I whipped out a pristine, official-looking marriage application form and dramatically shook it, telling her that the archaic but beautiful law of my country allows an immediate citizen spouse to pull a dependent out of the free zone, making this not a proposal, but a temporary contractual exfiltration plan. Maria, a doctor who needs a clear surgical plan, agreed immediately, needing only to know the next 3 moves, and I explained phase 1, the paperwork drop, which required her to sign the document within a 30-second window before the shift change, allowing me to use a covert internal channel to bypass Victoria and send the high-ray scan directly to legal and registry, making the marriage certificate a digital shield against immediate deportation. The moment she signed it, with a determined energy, I rapidly snapped a photo, tapped my encrypted phone, sending the high-ray scan, and told her the plan was active, telling her to blend in, to act like a bored spouse waiting for an oversized luggage claim, because legally, she was now under my protection. Victoria returned, suspicious and demanding to see the notification. But I showed her an official looking, rapidly processed email confirming the marriage registry entry KOS 1218225 and demanded she call the control gate immediately, stating that my fiancé was ready to exit the zone with me on a tight flight schedule. However, just as we started moving quickly through an empty baggage carousel area, my major headwind appeared. Manuela, a great shark of ground security, who had been patrolling the perimeter waiting for my screw. Whitey stopped us, greeting me with a predatory, sneering tone about my extremely convenient sudden legal status change and asking if this was for a documentary called The Things We Do for Asylum. I tried to shut him down, focusing him on his actual job, but he immediately countered by holding up a small digital recorder and revealing that he had witnessed Victoria's humanitarian error, her failure to report Maria's previous free zone escape attempt, and also my bribe to her, claiming I was guilty of conspiracy to commit immigration fraud and that he had everything recorded. Ready to become Employee of the Month by destroying my career. Maria, however, stepped out from behind me, totally owning her new role, and shut him down immediately, admitting the escape was an act of desperation. Duh. But arguing that Victoria showed humanity, not criminality, and that the money was not a bribe, but a husband's debt, a legal exchange. She looked Manuela directly in the eye, dropping all pretense of being a victim, and informed him that this was a humanitarian marriage protected by multiple international charters, and that if he dared try to frame us for fraud, Sheetha knew Mrs. Ko's, a doctor specializing in stress, would personally bring legal action against him and the airport for emotional distress, illegal surveillance, and harassment of a new resident. Manuela, completely thrown by her combined legal knowledge and genuine fire, stuttered and retreated, defeated by the combined confidence and the threat of a 5-way legal battle involving the state, the union, the airline, the lawyer, and the new Mrs. Cause. Relieved and exhilarated by her performance, I told her she hadn't just played the role, she owned the role. And we continued on to the final boss level, the border control checkpoint, where Agent Agnes, a grizzled old gatekeeper, stood ready to scrutinize my paperwork and find any smudge, any mistake that would mean game over for our plan. Agnes ignored me, focused entirely on Maria, and asked her what one thing she was most looking forward to doing in our country. A question Maria knew required the ultimate performance of a dedicated spouse. Maria looked Agnes directly in the eye and stated that the thing she was most looking forward to was having the captain cooked for her, describing the view from his kitchen window and his promise to make her his famous high-altitude omelet, saying she was ready to be a wife and a resident after surviving on stale bread and fear. Agnes gave a slight, almost imperceptible smile, seeing the genuine exhaustion and the genuine hope framed by the required lie, and stamped the temporary residency permit with a resounding thwack, warning me not to mess this up because Maria was now my responsibility. I took Maria's hand and we walked past the final barrier out of the sterile, caged environment and into the bustling public arrival hall, where she inhaled the cold, fresh, real air, with tears finally falling, but happy tears. This time stating that the air was heavy and real, not recycled. Standing next to her looking out at the city's skyline, I told the camera that this was the payoff, that single breath end, that the victory was not about the plane tickets, the high status, or the legal loophole. It was about the will to fight, which Maria had, and I simply had the keys. As we got into a sleek black car and started driving away from the airport, Maria asked me what the very first thing we needed to do to make this humanitarian marriage look real, and I looked at her thoughtfully and told her that we needed to talk about her medical degree because the war is over for her, and now the rest of her life begins. A fake marriage is just paperwork, but a real life is the ultimate decoy. And that's the story, friends. The airport hustle is a success. My pilot life is in high-stakes jeopardy. But Maria is free. We traded a wedding ring for a residency permit and a high-altitude omelet for a new life. Hit that like button if you think the captain made the right call. Subscribe for more ridiculously risky career moves, and tell me in the comments, what should Maria's first meal actually be? Peace out and safe travels.